Hello, Dick Van Dyke Show friends. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is KJ Ricardo, and today's episode is a look at the travel episodes of the Dick Van Dyke Show. There are various episodes of the show that focus on traveling. There's a big trip. The episodes take place away from the home or the writing office, and so it's really interesting to see what shenanigans the characters get into on these trips. And so there are 15 episodes that I'm going to be looking at, so I'm going to talk about these episodes in more detail. So we're going to start with Washington versus the Bunny. This is very early on in the show during the first season. Rob is on an airplane. He's going on a business trip for the Alan radio show. He has an assignment from Alan. So he's going to miss Richie. He's performing in a play, and so he's going to miss this. He feels guilty about it, so he's talking to the passenger sitting next to him and talking about this dilemma. And so the episode takes place on an airplane. The next episode is The Secret Life of Buddy and Sally. In this episode, Rob is convinced that Buddy and Sally are having an affair. This is an episode that was probably a long time coming. People probably thought, well, would Buddy and Sally ever have an affair? And eventually, Rob and Laura follow Buddy Sally to wherever they're going, and it's actually a lodge, Herbie's Hiawatha Lodge. It's outside New York, and Buddy and Sally are actually performing there. They got a second job. And so it's a really nice episode. The next episode is Will You Two Be My Wife? This episode contains a little trip. So it's a flashback episode before Rob and Laura are married. Rob is actually engaged to someone else from his hometown of Danville, Illinois. And so he has to break off this engagement in order to marry Laura. So in this episode, he goes back to his hometown, he goes back to Danville, and he sees this fiance of his, and he has to gently break up with her. And of course, it doesn't end very well. The next episode is Don't Trip Over That Mountain. I personally love this episode. Rob is going to go on a skiing trip with Jerry. So this is a big trip. Everyone is looking forward to it. But Laura is convinced that Rob is going to fall off that mountain, that he's going to have a big injury. And she's actually correct. Rob has a severe injury. He tripped over a goat and he has a bruised body. This is hilarious, but this whole episode really focuses on this skiing trip, and it's just hilarious. The next episode is the Sam Pomerantz Scandals. This whole episode takes place away from the Alan radio show, away from the home in New Rochelle, and they are visiting this lodge owned by Sam Pomerantz. This is a really nice episode. Everyone is having a great time at this lodge, and eventually they perform at this lodge, and it's a great episode featuring everybody's talents, singing, dancing, comedy. It's just a really nice episode featuring everyone's talents on this trip. The next episode is Very Old Shoes, Very Old Rice. This is the second episode to a two-parter. Rob and Laura have to go to Connecticut to get married again, but it's actually for the first time because their marriage license was never actually true. So they were never actually married. And so they have to get married, but they have some arguments along the way. And this episode does take place in Connecticut. So it's a little trip. The next episode is the Ballad of Betty Lou. In this episode, Rob and Jerry are going to go on a sailing trip. They're going to go on a boat. They co-own a boat together. And so this is a mini trip, and these two friends get along really well, but they can also argue very well together. And that's exactly what happens in this episode. The trip is supposed to be fun, but it leads to a big mess. It's great. The next episode is Honeymoons Are for the Lucky. This is another flashback episode to when Rob and Laura are newlyweds and Rob wants to take her on a mini honeymoon away from the military base where he is currently working at. So they go to this little bed and breakfast, this little rundown, and the room isn't great. It's not a very nice honeymoon. But the main event of this episode is how difficult it is for Rob to actually leave the base and go on this honeymoon with Laura. The next episode is The Ghost of a Chantz, and this is probably my favorite episode from this list. I love this trip to this lodge cabin. It's for the Allen radio show, so they're on assignment. But eventually everyone finds out that this is a haunted cottage. And so they are very concerned that this night will never end for them. All of these weird things keep happening. People disappear. Things keep happening to them that make it look like it's actually haunted. And I just love this episode so much. So this is a fantastic trip.
Look, I'll admit, a lot of weird things are going on here, but I think that whoever or whatever it is doesn't want to hurt.
Explain that.
I can't. Honey, are you all right?
Rob, I'm fine. I just want to get out of here. Yeah, me too, Rob. Please, let's go.
All right, let's get out of here now.
The next episode is Never Bathe on Saturday. This is another mini little trip. Rob and Laura are having a romantic getaway in the city. So they're away from Richie, from New Rochelle. And so this is like a second honeymoon almost for them. Everything is going well until Laura gets her toe stuck in the bathtub faucet. And so this ruins their plans. Rob has to help her get out of this tub. And so this trip doesn't end well. This wasn't on their agenda. But that's what makes this episode so classic, is that they were supposed to have this romantic getaway, but things changed. Next, we're going to look at the episode Baby Fat. In this episode, Alan is going to appear in a Broadway production. And so he isn't very pleased with the script. He wants Rob to be the doctor for the script. To doctor it means to edit it, revise it, make it better for Alan. And eventually, Rob has to go to Connecticut where the rehearsals are happening and be there to help Alan. And so it is a little mini trip. The next episode is A Farewell to Writing. I personally enjoy this episode. I'm a writer myself. And so Rob wants to finally write a novel that he has been dreaming about. He has been wanting to write a novel, but he can't write at home. He has writer's block. And so he goes to one of his friends' cottage. It's out in the woods. It's very secluded. It's the perfect place to write. As a writer, I would love to have a cottage like Rob, but it doesn't work out for him. He keeps being distracted. He's just not writing very well. He's distracted by everything in this cottage. So the trip that is supposed to be perfect for him doesn't work out, and that's what makes it funny. The next episode is Remember the Alimony. This is another flashback episode to when Rob and Laura are newlyweds. They're going to go on a trip to Mexico. They kind of want to get away from the military base and away from Rob's friends. So they think this trip is going to be great for them and their marriage, but it's actually the opposite. They don't enjoy this trip at all. They get angry at each other. They fight. And they actually consider getting a divorce. Luckily, thankfully, they didn't get a divorce, but still, this vacation just ended so poorly. The next episode is Bad Reception in Albany. This episode takes place in Albany, New York. Laura is in one of her relatives' weddings, and so Rob is there to accompany her, but he has to watch some special production for Alan, and so he's not really at the wedding. But at this hotel, he finds himself getting into some shenanigans like always. And so this trip, once again, doesn't work out very well for Rob, and it ends in hilarious antics. The last episode is Long Night's Journey into Day, and personally, I love this episode, and it has a trip in it. Rob, Jerry, Millie, and all the children are going on a fishing trip, and Laura is by herself back at home. Eventually, Millie joins her, and they are just scared by every single sound in the house. They think that there's a burglar in the house, and so this is a hilarious episode. And then we do see a part of the cabin where Rob and Jerry are, and so we get to see this trip, and so this whole episode is happening because of this fishing trip. And that's it. That's all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed looking at these trips. I chose this theme because it's summer. A lot of people go on trips during this season, and so Rob and Laura and the whole gang, they go on plenty of trips over the 5 years of that Dick Van Dyke Show, and so I really wanted to showcase that. Please let me know what your favorite episode is from this list. Personally, I love The Ghost of a Chantz. It's a classic trip episode. It takes place in a haunted cabin, and that's just a great premise for an episode, but I would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time with another video, and remember to always laugh often.